So if you're experiencing heart attack symptoms, such as chest pain and upper body discomfort, shortness of breath, cold sweats, nausea, or lightheadedness, or stroke symptoms, such as balance issues, vision problems, face drooping, arm or leg weakness, or speech difficulty, please call 911 immediately. Our emergency department team is taking special precautions with all patients and created designated areas for the treatment of COVID-19 patients. To learn more about how Hackensack Meridian Health is providing you the best healthcare during this pandemic, visit hackensackmeridianhealth.org/getcarenow. Sponsored by Hackensack University Medical Center Foundation and aired by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
Morris County needs our Spanish-speaking community to fill out the 2020 census. It's safe, it's easy, and it's really important. If we are not fully counted, communities in Morris County from all nationalities, races, and ethnic groups will lose federal aid. Less money for health and child care programs, less for schools and student lunches, less for senior citizens, less for community health care. Competition for federal dollars is fierce. So if you live in Morris County, please fill out your census, online or on paper. No one will ask about citizenship, social security, bank accounts, or personal info. Help Morris County count in 2020. Do it now. Visit NJ Census 2020. This message is sponsored by the County of Morris, the New Jersey Department of State Complete Count Commission, and aired in cooperation with the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, the Phoenix Tube Company, the law firm of Declator Cohen and DePrisco, Solomon Jewelers, and General Needs Charity, serving our homeless veterans with dignity. And now, here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you. No, not Mark and AJ. I think we should just scratch him from there. Maybe, George, you got like that 5-second delay. Can't we just cut that out, or just do like that voiceover, like,
wrong in, Mike. I could have went live there. I am right here in the studio, or I could have hit the jump button. You're right. We got a delay. We got to talk it next time.
But there's rumors that there might be an AJ sighting at some point tonight. We'll see. So you want to keep it tuned right here. No, it's not Mark and AJ. It's Mark. It's Ryan Sherman, Mike and Peace with you this Sunday evening. Got a great show on tap with you, and it's time for the Capco Major League Baseball report. And with baseball underway, it means that the warm weather is here. It's a great time to keep those windows and doors open. Let the fresh air in. Keep the bugs out with a Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty and the patented speed reducer, so it will not snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for a free estimate. Purchase a unit and get free installation if you mention Sports Talk New York. That's 631-440-1100 or visit www.clearviewlongisland.com. All right, John. So, you know what? I've gone... when it comes to the Mets... I think, if you had to make a diagnosis of my Met fandom, it would be bipolar. Not bipolar bear, but bipolar. I go through these swings where I just can't stand everything about this franchise and all the decisions they make. And then I go back and say, listen, I have to be fair. Okay, listen, I never wanted Carlos Beltran, all right? Never wanted him. I always wanted Joe Girardi. When Joe Girardi came off the board, I wanted Luis Rojas, okay? When Brody Van Wagenen brought in Marcus Strollman, that's brilliant. That's insurance in case Zach Wheeler goes. And, then you take a look at, end up letting a player go who the original time when the Mets traded him, the guy actually called the general manager and told him he wanted to be a Met for life. You let him go. You bring in a guy who now, when we look at everything and all the evidence points to, the guy has a tremendously thin skin. Any players that tweet at him, any people that tweet at him that he doesn't like, he blocks them. The guy waited until he accumulated enough service time so he could be a free agent next year and bailed. You know, to me, listen, I understand everything that's going on in the world. You know, I understand what happened with Tuukka Rask. You know, but Marcus Stroman's not in a bubble environment. Marcus Stroman, from all reports, was going to the stadium and working out and trying to get back because he really wanted to help the team, and that's the type of guy he is. And the second he had enough service time, he bails. Marcus Stroman becomes my least favorite baseball player ever in the history of the game. So first we'll go with there. What are your thoughts on what Marcus Stroman did to the Mets?
It's really hard for me to say, me personally, to say that that was what the motivation was and that he was hiding behind the COVID concerns. Because if somebody says that they're concerned about COVID, I mean, it's really tough to kind of go against them. We can see the circumstantial evidence, and I'm not going to deny that wasn't a part of it, but I personally don't know what's going on in Marcus Stroman's head. We can look at the circumstantial evidence, and a lot of cases, a lot of criminal cases or civil cases are thrown out because of simply circumstantial evidence, right? So we'll never know unless he admits it, and it does seem a little harsh to accuse an athlete of hiding behind something as serious as the COVID concern. Now, like I said, if he did it, if that was his motivation, then players, owners have been doing that to players for decades. So if a player does that to an owner, then who are we to really say what that one way is wrong and the other way is right? So it's tough for me to say, but I do understand the frustration. I understand the frustration of somebody that you're only going to get this season from Stroman because he's probably going to leave as a free agent, although I'm not completely convinced that he wouldn't re-sign here. I don't want him. But it's tough. It's tough to say.
Trust me, it's the last guy I want on my team right now. Well, second to last guy, because the other guy who opted out because of COVID concerns and was so concerned with the COVID concerns, that day he's out dancing at a club with no mask on.
So that doesn't look good. And Cespedes he's a different bird, and we knew that going in with him. I don't know. I don't know. I wish Cespedes would have told his side of the story a little better than he did. But that's his prerogative, and he's only going to hurt himself. At this point, the moment he opted out, he's only going to hurt himself by going out dancing and not social distancing. So I throw my hands up at Cespedes.
Let's continue with what's going on with the Mets. Granted, you can never protect yourself over injuries, and you take a look at what's going on with their pitching staff. We all thought their pitching staff was going to be so deep. Then you get Stroman getting injured, then you get Stroman opting out, then you get guys, just falling left and right. That being said, okay, and listen, it's early. It's a very weird season. I wanted Rojas as the manager. Here's where I'm confused. This was a team that had tremendous energy. This was a team in the second half of the season that had swagger. This is a team that no lead was insurmountable. This now is a team that the second they're behind, their heads are down, they play lackluster in the field. Is that just a byproduct of the fact that they're not playing in front of fans? The dugout, for the most part, they're somewhat social distance, so maybe that camaraderie and that feeling is not there. You take a look at all these different guys that they're trotting in and out. You got Billy Hamilton, and bottom line is, the old adage still holds true with him. You can't steal first base. This guy's got to be able to hit. But there's just something lacking there. You take a look at Pete's start this year, and you take a look at the guys that are doing well, Cano and Dominic Smith. and they're just never firing on the right cylinders. The day they get offense, they don't get pitching. The day they get pitching, they get no offense. Is it a byproduct of what's going on, or do you think it's something deeper?
I think it could be in part. It's so weird with the pandemic going on. We don't really know how it affects each individual player when you go from player to player, because you got Wilson Ramos is a perfect example, and he said that now that he can't see his family on the road to wind down, he goes to his hotel room and just pours over those bad moments that he would have in a ball game. So that's how it affects him. It could affect a lot of some players physically in terms of the stop and start with the spring training. I think it could be a lot of that. Every team is affected by the same thing, though.
Right.
So you wonder, I've always said that this season was going to be decided by who handles it the best, who handles it physically in the break the best, and who can handle it mentally. And that's not, and listen, if you have issues in terms of mental health with this, then you can't help that. Tuukka Rask, a lot of people say, well, Tuukka Rask quit on his team. I say, listen, if Tuukka Rask's heart isn't in it, then he's doing the Bruins a favor by bowing out and having somebody in goal that can play and whose heart is in it. Because if Tuukka Rask stays because he owes it to the team, then he's going to wind up ultimately costing his team the playoffs. And it could be with a lot of these players, if they're not mentally in it, but they're trying to stick through it, it's hard to say what kind of effect it's having on each individual team. I think it's a great unknown, and it's going to be a great unknown for a while. So I think it's partly that, but I also think it could be partly physical in terms of the Mets' inability to bounce back from what's been going on.
Okay, John, totally agree about that point. So how do you guys see this now playing out for the rest of the season? I know we all had kind of high expectations for the Mets this year, or maybe just excitement. But now that we're almost, we're a few weeks away from the halfway point, do you guys see this team like almost bottoming out and they're just not having like a great resolve, or is there something that could spark this team? What do you think? I mean, I know the injuries are tough. You have DeGrom out with the neck.
And plus the fact now you have the two first-place teams back-to-back. You have the Marlins, which I don't consider a first-place team, but they are, and then the Yankees.
Yeah.
It's tough. And listen, give credit to the Marlins, because the Marlins, I think before the season even started, before this pandemic, I liked what they did with the roster, because they added a bunch of a good amount of very serviceable veterans, and they didn't try to go all young guy on the roster. So I give the Marlins credit. I don't know if they're going to sneak into one of those spots, but I certainly think they're going to be competitive on a game-to-game basis. In terms of the Mets, I don't know what's going to spark them, and I don't know if it's going to take some sort of intangible spark to get them going, because two things are really the bottom line when we look back at this season, if it goes the way it does. The first thing is Pete Alonso's just not performing at the level he did last time. Last year.
Forget about level. He's nowhere. I mean, he is below the Mendoza line. He's right now. If he wasn't Pete Alonso, he'd probably be in the minor leagues if there were minor leagues.
Exactly. And he had, I think, going into Friday's game, 38 at-bats where he had runners in scoring position. So he had, you think about Pete Alonso with that many opportunities to drive in runs, and you put in the Pete Alonso of last year in those situations, or even close to it, this team would be in a much better position. And that's not to put this whole season on Pete Alonso, because look, players struggle, and that's what it is. But he would have made a huge difference in this team. The other thing too is you've gone from a starting rotation of DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, Strollman, and Matz to a starting rotation of DeGrom, who's been hurt, and Matz, who's really struggling, Porcello, Walker, who's hurt, David Peterson, and now Robert Gsellman, and now God knows who. I mean, you see the Mets brought their draft pick from last year, Matt Allen, into the alternate site, and everybody said, oh, that means they could trade him. I think we could see Matt Allen pitch with the Mets this year.
Absolutely. That's why he's
there. If the starting
no,
rotation gets any more banged up.
No question. Because listen, if it's between him and Lockett, trust me, it's Allen. There's no question about it. Especially
why wouldn't you take that chance at this point? What do you have to lose right now?
Right, listen, I mean, look what it's done with Jimenez. You don't have minor leagues. Where else is he going to get work against live batters? And again, you just have to come in around the 500 mark. If this guy can give him serviceable innings, why not? I totally agree, for sure. One other thing before we move across town to the Yankees. You mentioned Alonso and his struggles, but here's another thing. And yeah, we can zoom in various different jobs and such. But how much is a factor of not having Chili Davis there? Because I have a feeling that Chili would be able to work with Pete, one-on-one in a cage and get things done. Now, Chili's not with the team. He's doing some work remotely. I don't know if you can be a hitting coach remotely.
It's tough. It's really tough, especially when you've got a young player that may not understand, and I'm not saying this case with Alonso, I'm spitballing here, but when you have a player who may not be able to translate a piece of video to his own work. We've all seen the hitch that Pete Alonso has in his swing now, where he has his hands a little bit higher. Now, it's easy for everybody to spot. May not be so easy to fix by yourself with video and Zoom. It certainly would help, I think, to have a guy like Chili Davis there. I think it could absolutely be a factor in what's going on with Alonso in particular. I don't know how much Chili Davis would have an effect on the hitting with runners in scoring position. This team is up near the top in hits. They're up near the top in on-base percentage, but they've stranded an entire village on the base paths. So I don't know if Davis would have had an effect that way, but certainly with Alonso, I think there could be something to what you said for sure.
And then there's also the idea of too many voices, because so you might be working with Chili remotely, but the bench coach of the Mets is a former hitting coach in Bam Bam Mullen. So I don't know if Hensley's giving them one message and the other players are giving different messages, and if that's in the mix as well. But let's move across town, where everything that organization does always seems to work out right. They are the anti-Mets, and that's the New York Yankees. And no matter who gets injured, they're able to plug a guy in. I mean, listen, if let's say you took any other team in Major League Baseball and said, okay, Carlos Stanton's going to go on the IL, and then Judge is also going to go on the IL, and then LeMahieu is also going to go on the IL.
Only to be replaced by Clint Frazier and Miguel Andujar.
Right. Yeah. And not only does a team not miss a beat, but 9 times out of 10 they go on a run where they win more games than they were winning. It's more frustrating to be a Met fan when you see what an organization that's run correctly does. And even their hire as managers. You take a look at Boone and just the way, the fact that the Mets didn't hire Girardi is just, it's going to be one of those things that you're just going to shake your head, especially that he's in the division year after year, because he's going to outmanage whoever we have on our bench. But you take a look at the Yankees and look at everything they've done right. Why have they been such a model of consistency, and why are they able to have that minor league, surplus that no matter who goes down, they're able to plug in? And not only that, their roster is able to overcome all their warts, because Gary Sanchez had like the Alonso drop off. All right, all of a sudden he was just lost. He's back. There's no question he's back. So what is it about that organization that does everything right?
It's amazing, and and add to that this is a team that hasn't finished under 500 since supplemental. Right. In 1992. So they're not getting high draft choices. They're not getting fortified by the farm system in that way, but it's scouting. They scout so well. They scout when, look at Luke Voigt. They traded Chasen Sui for him, and Chasen Sui was a good pitcher. He's actually been very good for the Mets this year. But to scout a guy correctly and get a guy that really wasn't taking hold in another organization and then making him a star, and that really takes talent. And the Yankees do that time and time again. Not that they don't make mistakes, but when the Yankees make a mistake, they could throw money at it and kind of hide it and patch it up with more money and do something correct. And you look at Jacoby Ellsbury. Jacoby Ellsbury, people forget that he's been on the Yankees for the last 5-6 years because he hasn't been in a game. Right. But the Yankees are able to cover that up with shrewd signings
with a
and
Mike
the
Talkman.
financial might to back that up as well.
Right, like someone like a Mike Talkman. Okay, I want to switch over to who the Yankees have been playing. The Boston Red Sox. It's an odd scenario where you look at the 2018 World Series Red Sox and you see how they've deteriorated. And I think a lot of it goes into the decisions of who they decided to invest in. So a guy like JD Martinez gets the contract, a guy like Price, a guy like Sale, but Mookie Betts, who another 3 home run game this week, he's just unbelievable. He goes, and how frustrating that must be for the fan base there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely frustrating. The Boston Red Sox, and they've been doing this since 2004. They've been going up to the highest of highs, but when they go down, man, they go down fast and they go hard. This might be the worst. I think the Red Sox pitching is so dreadful that they are the worst team in baseball.
Yeah, they're almost not competitive.
Right.
No,
they were getting drubbed
they're
this.
not
Like
competitive.
16, but it was like
pitching.
16 in like the 5th inning.
Yeah, they're absolutely not competitive, and I think it's the worst Red Sox team that they've had maybe in the last 40 years. You know, and that's why I say let's be a little careful with the Yankees, because they are doing damage to the Red Sox. They're going to do damage again tonight. Chris Mazza is starting for the Red Sox. I like Chris Mazza. He did good work with the Mets, but I think he's going to be overmatched in this matchup. So when the Yankees kind of go on with all of their injuries and all of their struggling hitters, like Gleyber Torres is struggling, and they got a lot of guys hitting on the interstate, although, as you say, Gary Sanchez is coming out of it. Let's see what they do against some stiffer competition like Tampa Bay and maybe some of the teams in the East.
Baltimore.
Let's see what happens there. But they're doing good so far.
Absolutely. All right, Johnny, we appreciate it. John Carpenter here each and every week on 540 AM Sports Talk New York. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll have Russ Cohn with the Soho Table Hockey Report, so keep it tuned right here.
Decolator Cohen and DeFrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. Glad you're tuning in, whether you're watching us on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, or over the radio or over the internet. We appreciate you tuning in. It's time now for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn, sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey has embraced the nostalgia of those old tabletop games and designed a whole new board for the future. Handcrafted with designer woods, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, and energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit Soho Table Hockey to learn more and start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a centerized logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. And if you were, putting your teams out there, it'd be pretty cool to have a new Ranger player in your lineup. So Russ, it's so funny. Obviously, I cover the team, but I'm also a lifelong fan. And, going into that draft, the lottery on Monday, I knew it was only for the #1 spot. I knew that. Any way you could know it, I knew it. However, I'm sitting down there and I'm watching the ping pong balls go, and I see the first one pop up, New York Rangers, and I knew that they got the #1 choice. But being a Ranger fan and knowing the history of everything, they said, I said, oh no, so they got the 16th pick, now it didn't, like, I knew it, but it really, I was in shock, and I just...
No, I had a similar problem. I did. I was like, wait, what? I didn't watch the whole thing. I was following it on Twitter at first because I didn't want to jinx it. I was like, because I knew it had never happened in my lifetime, and I don't count the 65 draft because only 11 guys were drafted, and the Leafs didn't even draft, so I don't even count that. It was great. I mean, it was interesting because there wasn't as much Ranger hate as I thought there would be, and at least people did see that, hey, it's good for the league, too, because, again, he's the one marketable player in this draft, and let's face it, Rangers ticket sales have not been great in the last couple of years, and this will actually help that cause whenever that gets back into play when the world gets better. So, end of the day, I'd put him on the top line, put Panarin on the right wing. I think he's ready for it, but, you see how he is in camp. If he's not, you put him on the second line. But I would rather have him start with Panarin than with someone like Capco who's struggling himself. That's the main thing. Let him. This way, he can really show his talent right away, and this is a great pick for them. Really, the best pick I've ever seen them make. So, and I love the Kreider pick, and I knew he would be a very good player, but this is a different level.
This guy's a franchise changer, no question about it.
Yeah.
So, in the press conference, we that night we got the GM and we got the pick, but the day after we got both of the GM and the president, and JD said something that kind of a lot of people glossed over, but I went back to it. So JD said, coming off the plane out of the bubble, he had a long conversation with Hank, and they're going to do what's right by Hank. And so he had mentioned that in response to something else, and as it got further along, I went back to that and I said, JD, when you say you're going to do right by Hank, what does that mean? Does that mean at the expense of the organization? Can you both do what's right for Hank and what's right for the Ranger organization? And the more I thought about it, and speaking to a friend of mine today, it's interesting because and he's not a Ranger fan. It was a very interesting take. Like my whole thing, and we've discussed this, is you really don't want to buy out Hank because you don't want
horrible look.
Right. Horrible look, and you don't want that dead cap space. Right. They've already said they're not coming to camp with 3 goalies. So for me, what's right for Hank, and maybe not right, and maybe actually in actuality right for the team. If you believe that this team with Lafreniere is ready to compete for the Stanley Cup next season, it's right.
Still need defense. They do.
Right. So all right. So we're all in agreement that this team is not built to go to a Stanley Cup final next year. So if that's the case, you're looking at 2 or 3 years down the road. So there is no urgency to buy Hank out. There's no big free agent center out there that's going to be the game changer this year. That means you have to buy out Hank to save the 2.5 and next year have the dead cap space when maybe someone will become available via trade. So for me, what's right by Hank is let Hank decide. Hank, if you want to come back, you're on the team. If you don't want to come back, we're not going to buy you out. Maybe under the table type deal, retirement, go play with your brother. So for me, there's only 2 scenarios that's right by both of them. One is Hank is back next year, and Georgiev is going to go in a trade somewhere. And I don't think his value is going to be that high because I was looking at the free agent goalies. There are a number of them out there that are decent goaltenders. So my feeling is Hank is back. If Hank wants to play here, Hank's here next year based on, and that's just me reading into it. What is your feeling? When JD says they're going to do what's right for Hank, what do you think that means?
All that meant to me was they're not going to buy him out. After that doesn't mean they're not calling for trades because I kind of heard that they might be. And that doesn't mean, because again, they're still going to have to, if they get a team that says, yes, we'll do it for this, that, or the other,
he still has to
bring it.
Right.
You still have to bring it to Lundqvist, and he still has to approve it, right? So, at the end of the day, you're right. I just think it was dumb to say they're only going to go with 2 goalies next year because, again, that's not what killed your season. Henrik Lundqvist didn't kill your season. The 3 goalies didn't kill your season. So that, I think, is just David Quinn trying to just make it easier on himself. I really do. There's no other reason. Because otherwise, yes, it gets a little complicated when you have 3 goalies. But you know what? You can do it. And this guy gave you everything. And if he really wants to go out that way, why not let him go out that way? I agree, but I don't think it's going to happen that way. I still think he's going to end up retiring. But, it's a tough thing to kind of say, well, think about retirement if he doesn't want to. If he already knows he doesn't want to, then, you got to come up with a better solution.
But you know what? Retirement looks different now than it did January 1st of this year. A lot of things have changed. If I were him, I've accomplished listen, when you say teams that would trade for him, what team out there thinks that Henrik Lundqvist is going to be the difference maker over the course of a season? Because don't forget, he'll be 39 next season, right?
No, I know that.
So is he going to be your number 1 goalie the entire year? Because you're getting it. So if he's not your number 1 for the full year, that means he's not starting in the playoffs. So
well, it doesn't necessarily mean that. There could be a team out there that wants him as an insurance policy, or wants him to split time, because there's a lot of teams that are going to start splitting time, or wants him for ticket sales. So you could take that however way you want it, but he would still have to agree. And so at the end of the day, I think that's still far-fetched. I think, a lot of teams would still take Lundqvist and tell their current goalie, hey, you're going to be tandeming with this guy because you weren't the best at last year, and this guy could teach you some things. So there are a lot of teams that could benefit from that.
But which team is, obviously the only reason why Hank would hang on is a shot at the cup. Give me that team that would want Hank that's a cup contender.
Well, if somehow, and I do think it's their year, but if somehow the Avalanche falls short, they'd be the team.
Okay. All right. And yet they didn't even make an offer for him this year.
Right. Because they feel like they have everything.
Right.
Maybe if they don't win it, they won't feel that way.
Right. All right. Let's take a look at these playoffs. They've just been compelling. Fans or no fans, these overtime games, the Columbus game, listen, I can't help it, but you have to feel for Korpisalo and today, Talbot. When guys stand on their head and give their team every opportunity to win these overtime games, and they get beat on a goal, listen, Korpisalo, there's nothing you could do. The guy just did everything. He willed that team.
He made 85 saves.
Yeah, that's just insane. It's just insane. Like, my wife, I said, he just made his 85th save. She goes, what? And on top of it, then I did the calculations, which would just boggled the mind, was that day, Tampa Bay took as many shots in that game as the New York Rangers did in the 3-game play-in. It's just insane. They almost played as much time, though. So, but when you see goaltending like that, and listen, Korpisalo is a good goaltender. Yeah. Talbot's a good goaltender, but we wouldn't put them as the elite in the NHL. But when you see performances like that, does it also tell you that you don't need that Hall of Fame goaltender to win a Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I think that's true. The Canadians would argue, because Carey Price has certainly been big, but really Weber, you could say, is maybe even bigger than Carey Price, him coming in better shape than he was in the regular season. Yeah. You can make that argument, and I think that's a fair argument, because I think we're still going to start to see cups with teams that win that don't have Hall of Fame goalies, because for one thing, the Hall of Fame doesn't even vote in goalies. It takes like once every decade that they put one in, right. So that sort of kills the statement anyhow. But even ones that we think are Hall of Famers, I think goalies are going to start getting paid less anyhow. I don't think anybody's, Bob has pretty much killed the market for high-priced goalies, I think. So, end of the day, I think you will start seeing more tandems. You will start to see fewer teams banking on that one goalie and paying him a king's ransom, unless, that goalie is winning multiple cups for you.
Speaking of goalies and a tandem, all right, you take a look at what happened with the Bruins and, Tuukka-esque. It's very interesting, because most of the players in the bubble have all backed up his decision. The one guy who's kind of alluded to thinking it was wrong was, and he didn't do it in a nasty way. Trotz just
this
said,
isn't Mike Milbury you're talking about, because I thought his was a nasty way.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, no. This is Trotz, and what Trotz said was, listen, when we were ready and we came back to camp, I explained to everyone that either you're in or you're out. There's no halfway. If you're even thinking that maybe you don't want to do this, don't do it. You need to win a cup and win rounds of playoffs. You need 100% commitment. And as a competitor, I guess Tuukka probably felt, yeah, he was all in. But we were talking before the show, and as a parent, and you Zoom after a game, and you're speaking to your wife, and your wife is saying, "Well, I'm doing this with the kids, and I can't do this, and I can't do that," and it's difficult,
maybe.
Right? So you can't fault the guy, but I wonder. His teammates are all saying the right thing. Is it going to be tough for him to walk back in that locker room next season?
No,
you don't think so?
I don't think so. I mean, it doesn't mean they won't trade him, but I don't think they will. End of the day, I've known this guy since his World Juniors back in like 06. And he was fine before the child was born, because I saw a game in March. I think his daughter was born in like April or May, right?
Right.
And in March, he was fine. He was great with the media. It was the last time we were ever in front of players, and we had this little socially distant podium, but and he was great. He was a competitor too. Totally loose, yeah. So the issue is, I believe, hey, he's got 2 other little kids at home, and now a 4-month-old, and maybe this is like a big challenge for his wife, and maybe he was feeling guilty that he was there when this was going on. This could happen to anybody in any everyday life.
Right, absolutely.
I do not fault this guy. Now, we also have to remember, and we're probably not going to see it, but like Lars Eller went home for the birth of his child, and he came back into the bubble. You never know. Tuukka Rask comes back into the bubble.
Right. That's true.
That is a possibility.
Yeah, but if he does, listen, if his team continues to win, he can come back, but he's not going to get in nets unless,
Right, unless something else happens. But again, hockey's a weird game. Life is weird. This whole setup, we love it as fans, right? But as a human being, it takes a toll on you. And they're playing games every day. Like, they used to get a break when they were taking a flight, and they could get out of one city and kind of erase their mind. They can't do that now. They've talked about that. So I think it's easy for Barry Trotz to say that when he doesn't have sort of any lingering things like this. But it's impossible to say to everybody on your team, it's 100% for them to don't even think about leaving. Like, he didn't say it like that, but you get my drift. Right. You can't do that.
No, and it's interesting because, players are wired differently. I'll never forget when they first were leaving for the bubble and speaking to Ryan Strome, he also just had a newborn. And, granted, the pause gave him time to be around, which in some respects might even made it harder for him to leave. But Strome said that, listen, it's been 3 years since, he's been able to play in the playoffs. He explained to the young players that you don't get this opportunity. And, he'll have plenty of time when his career is over to be with his kids. People are wired differently. It's just the way they are. It's the same thing, you're right, in any profession. Any person could be going through this. Absolutely. I agree. The old person
making really bad takes.
Right. Listen, I have that compassion for Tuukka Rask. I don't have it for Marcus Stroman.
Or Cespedes.
Or Cespedes, right. If I see Tuukka Rask in a Cuban nightclub dancing without a mask, he's going on the other side. Right now, he's home with his kids. He's on the good side for me, right?
The reason you're saying that about Stroman is simply because you knew that he had reached his service time. Now, that's not that you could point to and say, okay, didn't happen by accident. So that's not a coincidence. I get it.
Exactly. All right, let's take a look at some of these games. The New York Islanders, wow. Just total shutdown, their defense, and you said it. And we felt that, offensive sometimes finds ways to get through that defense. As good as the defense is, you need the offense to overcome, that as good as your defense is. And they've been able to do it. I mean, today they got 2 huge saves, and they come back on the other end, breakaways. They get saves on a breakaway, come down the other one, Barzal wins it to put almost an impenetrable 3-0 lead now in this series. I cannot see them blowing this lead. I'd be shocked.
They're not going to. I mean, I did pick the Caps in the series, to be fair, because I thought the reset would give them one more chance with this team, but they definitely look like a team that's having trouble in the bubble. Not to make a rhyme here, but they do look like that. And I think Todd Reardon's job is on the line. I think, this team has looked sleepy at times all season, and I thought they might rise to the occasion. They didn't, and certainly that wasn't Hope's fault on that goal. But, man, when you're hammering it like that, and that goes back the other way and you lose, I saw the look at Ovechkin, and his look was different than a lot of other players. Like, his look is just a total disbelief, and some of the other players were just like upset, like they just lost the series. So I think they did lose the series.
It's funny that you mentioned Reardon's job is on the line. So if you go back and if we go back and play the tapes when we're thinking about candidates for the New York Ranger job, the two sexier names out there were Reardon and Montgomery. And Montgomery's out at Dallas, and Reardon's now going to be out in Washington, and Quinn is slowly but surely building a really strong foundation here in New York. So sometimes the unknowns are much better than the known quantities out there. All right, some of these other series. All right, so now you have Montreal. Their coach ends up after a game having to go to the hospital and having stents put in, and he's gone for the remainder of the series. How do you think the team will respond to that?
Well, I think they'll respond great because Kirk Muller is a player's player. I know him a little bit. I've taken a flight or two with him. Very good hockey mind. Like, this guy really knows his stuff. He knew it as a player. He already made a nice move by putting in Jake Evans. I felt like that they were relying a little bit too much on veterans, and they should have a few young legs in there. So Julian, I felt did that, and then so they moved away from that. Got a good performance. Did a few little tinkerings, but kept the essential Julian way, and I think they improved on it. And so I think Muller is actually going to give them a little spark. I don't know if it'll be enough to win the series. I doubt it, but I think it will give them more spark than we thought that they were going to have. So I don't think it's going to matter. But again, if by some chance the Montreal Canadiens were to advance, Claude Julien could come back in the bubble. It's possible.
So one of the players I've been so impressed with on the Islanders is Anthony Beauvillier. And so as a player who we, I think a few years on the show, we're talking about, is this a young guy who maybe is going to be going up and down in between, Bridgeport? We don't know. He's turned into such a complete player. He looks confident out there, but he seems to really have taken to trots in the system, and it hasn't taken away from his offensive game either.
No, and actually, I felt like when he was drafted, that was kind of like a risky draft pick because a lot of people, and I think I looked at him as all offense and no defense. And he really has learned how to do that, and without losing his offense, like you said. He always had the great speed. He always could put the puck in the net. But in order to be like a really high-scoring guy in this league, you've got to play defense so you won't see the ice time to do it. He's been able to do it. He's been a real spark for them, and that has been a really good boost for them. It really has. And I think, today's goal with Barzal, that's probably going to boost them even further. So, the Islanders, if they would have showed me a little more offense, I would have picked them over the Capitals, but they just weren't showing me enough offense. Now with a really lousy Capitals defense, they're there. So now they give me something to think about for next round.
All right, Russ, before we let you go, biggest surprise to date for these playoff round, this particular playoff round?
Well, it's still Montreal winning that second game, and maybe we think they're a little better of them. I mean, they beat the Rangers. They did move on in their first round, and that was, a surprise. And if they can get past the Flyers, that would be an unbelievable thing. I don't think it's going to happen, but weird things are happening in this bubble.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Russ, we'll speak to you next week. Russ Cohn here each and every week with the Soho Table Hockey NHL Report. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk hoops, so keep it tuned right here.
Since 1952, Solomon's Jewelers has been the name to trust on Long Island for jewelry. Solomon's Jewelers is a 60-year-old family-owned business run by jewelry professionals and Gemological Institute of America graduates. 3 generations of experience let them offer you certified appraisals. They have a highly skilled design, repair, and watchmaker staff on premises for all your restyling needs. Solomon Jewelers offers a wide variety of magnificent designer couture jewelry, name brand watches, and certified diamonds. Solomon Jewelers pride themselves on having the best customer service and support in the jewelry industry. They're there with 60 years of experience behind them to help educate and guide you through every step of your jewelry purchase. Solomon Jewelers has 2 convenient locations to serve Long Island's jewelry needs. 74 Minetto Hill Plaza, Plainview, New York, or 1030 Willis Avenue, Albertston, New York. Visit them on the web at www.solomonjewelers.com. Solomon Jewelers, serving Long Island since 1952.
Since 1964, Prince Associates' commitment has been to provide customers with the best insurance value and service available while maintaining the highest ethical standards and credibility with their clients, carriers, and the public. Prince Associates Incorporated is an independent insurance agency with a broad range of commercial, personal, life, and health products. Prince Associates has aligned themselves with some of the finest carriers to deliver these products to you. So whether you're a business or an individual, Prince Associates can help. Please visit them on the web at princein's.com for an online quote, or call them at 516-822-6550. Tell them Mark and AJ sent you. Prince Associates, meeting your every insurance need since 1964.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Capece with you this Sunday evening. It's time for the Disaster Cleanup Services NBA report. If your property has been affected by water or fire damage, look no further than the professionals at Disaster Cleanup Services. Independently owned and operated, Disaster Cleanup Services is the Tri-State's leader in property damage cleanup, specializing in water and fire damage restoration, mold remediation, sewage cleanup and decontamination, lead and asbestos abatement, and much, much more. For information, visit their website, www.4disasters.com. That's the number 4. Call today, mention the Sports Talk New York for a free in-home inspection at 1-800-297-WATER. That's 1-800-297-9283. Disasters happen. Let them clean it up. All right, so guys, I'm not the NBA guy. Usually AJ is here for that. You guys have been following what's going on. The playoffs are starting. Why don't you guys break it down for our audience, what you see happening in these NBA playoff rounds?
Okay, so I think I want to start with I think he was voted the seeding game MVP, Damian Lillard. So he dropped another 60-point game this week. Adidas did a viral marketing campaign to do a $61 shoe that sold out within the same day. But he's a special player, and he took over the 8th seed from the Memphis Grizzlies, and that was a really pretty exciting matchup this last week to see John Morant, Damian Lillard go at it. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, John Morant, they're all point guards from mid-major programs. Mm-hmm. So that's or shooting guards, I should say. So they really kind of like share respect with each other for that. When the game was over, they kind of like shared a hug. That was like the next generation. John Morant will be coming up, but I'm more excited to see Portland grab that 8th seed because I think they can really give the Lakers a run. What do you think, Mike?
So in my eyes, Portland, they have a good team. They have a deep team, but the Lakers, in my opinion, are just going to be too much for them. You have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I mean, Damian Lillard, is he going to repeat what he did in the seeding game? Like, that's my biggest.
But it's not just Damian Lillard. It's CJ McCollum. It's Carmelo Anthony, our favorite, right?
It's like the Godfather with Carmelo Anthony. Just when I thought we are, he pulls us back in.
No, but they're really a well-built complementary team. So they surround Damian Lillard with a lot of shooters so that he can kick the ball out. If he's driving the lane, he can kick it out. Do we have Chaim?
No, we don't, but...
do we have a...
You know what? Because I alluded to this.
It's like a Bigfoot sighting over here.
I alluded to this, that normally, the guy here to talk basketball, if Chaim's not here, is AJ. So, I think AJ, it's not quite Groundhog's Day. He didn't stick his head out of the hole, but I think he's come out of his bunker. AJ, is that you?
That was me.
Whoa!
AJ, we miss you.
I'm socially distant.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
And I'm happily socially distant for reasons other than COVID.
So, all right, before we let you do your Sunday papers, the boys are talking NBA playoffs. So, go ahead, guys.
Just jumping right back into it, we were talking about the Lakers and Blazers matchup. I really like the Blazers in this matchup. I think they're a really deep team. I think Damian Lillard is not only like a star and superstar, anyone who knows basketball acknowledges that. But they have a deeper team. They have Son, Whiteside, they have Yusuf Nurkic, they have Zach Collins inside, they have Carmelo Anthony, Gary Trent Jr., CJ McCollum shooting on the outside. I think they're a really deep team. I think they give the Lakers a run, but Mike seems to think that LeBron's got it.
I agree with Mike. I think you take a look at what Portland did. They were surprised. They had to play in. They had to play very well to do it. Look, the Nets, which were also a surprising team, played hell of games with them. Lillard had to get hot. I think, the Lakers were toying around with stuff. They knew they qualified. It really wasn't serious for a lot of the teams that you see in the bubble right now. Now these things get serious. You can start seeing one of the things nobody did up to now was play defense. These games are like the All-Star game in terms of scores. Everybody's scoring 130 points. I don't think you can see that now. The playoffs are serious. You're going to see defense come in. I think you can see more chalk, and you see a surprise like Portland, despite how good Lillard played for the past few games.
And so LeBron, it seems when he sets his mind to it, he can do anything he really wants to. So for the first time in his career, he leads the league in assists. What do you make of that? For this late in his career, 17 years in, he made it a mark to want to lead the league.
I mean, one of the things that people tend to ignore is what a good leader LeBron is. And LeBron, can do assists. LeBron makes his teammates better. Look, he took, bad Cleveland teams to the NBA Finals. And, he does it. It's not that he's changed the game. He's playing when he wants to, he does. I think, again, look at what's happening. He's spreading the wealth around right now. The real postseason starts now. And I think you're going to start seeing much more chalk than you're going to see surprises.
All right, so let's go rapid fire through some of the matchups. Clippers, Mavs. Dallas looked good, but they had something to play for. The Clippers didn't. They didn't really look good in seeding games, but you already mentioned that. What do you think of that matchup?
Well, the Clippers have a lot to prove. And the Clippers are on a mission to prove that, they are the best team in LA, the best team in town. They view this is their chance. I think it's the Clippers.
Jazz, Nuggets. Nuggets are a good team.
Nuggets are a very good team. And again, they're a team, because they're in the West, we don't see a lot. I have to go Nuggets with that one.
Okay, OKC, Houston, and then we got, obviously, the Chris Paul-Russell matchup there with the trade last year.
Russell's hurt, isn't he? I mean, there's been some issues.
Yeah, he's still playing.
He was just announced out for Game 1.
Oh, okay. So that's a big win for sure.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I'll go Houston.
Okay. So on the other side of the bracket, and this is the one game that kind of intrigues me. This is two of the matchups intrigue me. The one that really intrigues me is the Celtics and the 76ers. Because 2 years ago, those were the really young and up-and-coming teams. Now they're matched against each other. That to me is going to be, I don't watch a lot of basketball. I'm going to watch that. But the other one, which I think kind of really flies under the radar, which I think could be a really good series, is Indiana versus Miami.
I agree.
So AJ, what are your thoughts on those two series?
I think you're right. I think the most interesting series is going to be Celtics-Sixers.
Yeah.
Cool series, you have to see, who's got the better young players, who's got the better coach.
Yeah.
And this is really the opportunity for the Celtics to show that, the Celtics coach to show that he's more than just a good college coach who's done okay with the Celtics.
And he had just received an extension this week.
Yeah.
Brad Stevens. He's such a good coach.
Brad Stevens is a good coach.
Yep.
Again, with something to prove. I think they have a little more experience. Well, I think it's probably a 7-game series. I'll go Celtics.
What do you think of the matchup, though? It's kind of a perimeter team in the Celtics with all of the outside guys. They're shooting and everything, perimeter defense, and such an inside presence with Philly.
It's a perimeter league these days.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Good answer. That's fair. Okay, what was the Bucks magic? I know you're really excited. You had said last week that Giannis is your favorite to see this playoffs.
Right. For me, it's like you wonder if there's one guy other than LeBron, if a guy can take his team on his back, and I think it's a Greek freak. And that's only because AJ kept on telling me how good the guy is, so I started watching him. What do you think, AJ?
I think it's Bucks hands down.
Okay.
I think the Bucks. I think you're going to look at an Eastern Conference final of Bucks Celtics.
And then what about, we have the Nets Raptors. So the Raptors didn't have too much to play for. They were a pretty high seed, but they're a good team. A lot of championship, experience from last year. The Nets actually kind of surprised people this week with their game against Portland. Karis LeVert has just been showing out. Jared Allen, Joe Harris. So that team that they brought there, they went with a mission to not just be embarrassed. They really were just building something.
I'm not trying to be a homer on this, but if you're looking for an upset, that's the one I would look for. I think that the X factor here is, the Nets changed coaches, and it looks like Jacques Vaughn has got the team playing some. They changed coaches. They lost. They didn't have Durant for the entire season. They lost Kyrie Irving. Dinwiddie opted out, players opted out, and what he's put together, I think if you're looking for an upset, that's the series. If the upset, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but all the ones that are next one's most likely to have an upset.
All right, now we're going to play a theme song that we have not heard in quite some time. In fact, Joe Jackson called me because he said, what happened? All my residual checks stopped coming. So we got to play your theme song, AJ, and hopefully you prepared something for us. All right, let's hear it. That can mean only one thing. It's time for AJ's Weird News. What do you got for us, AJ?
Well, let's stick to basketball.
Okay.
A lot of people are wondering what's going on and what is life like inside the bubble. Well, Jimmy Butler looked around inside the bubble and said there's something missing. The one thing you can't get inside the bubble, not the obvious, let's state it plain, is a good cup of coffee. So he has become an entrepreneur. He has a coffee machine in his room or suite or whatever at the Grand Destino Tower, which is the newest part of nicest hotel in all of Disney, it's part of Coronado Springs. He is selling coffee
for how much?
For $20 a cup.
Is any of it going to charity?
No.
Oh, no.
And this is somebody, by the way, signed a $140 million contract at the start of the year. Just, the Grand Destino Tower does have the Barcelona Lounge, which has an espresso machine and drinks, the Cafe Ring, which has specialty coffees. But he says the one thing you can't get is a good cup of coffee. He says, you know what? He may have been raising it for $30 a cup. Why? Because people will pay. He says they've all got money.
He kind of mentioned this week that he doesn't need friends in the bubble, but I guess he does need coffee and money.
Right. And maybe he's getting, selling coffee. Hopefully he gets friends. People drop by his room.
So I guess the headline there is the butler did it, right?
Right.
Oh, wow. So, all right. I wonder if he's got, his own personalized cups. I wonder if he does it like Starbucks and writes their name on it.
What he has is, I'll tell you this, though. He has a big sign on the door. It says cash only. No IOUs.
He's not accepting Venmo?
It's called Big Face Coffee. It says latte, pour-over, cappuccino, Americano, espresso, red eye, mocha, macchiato, and cafe au lait.
All right, it was worth the wait, AJ. We'll see you soon. AJ Carter back. All right, we'll take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to be speaking to a lacrosse legend, so keep it tuned right here.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the preceding program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Hello, this is Bob Garrett, CEO of Hackensack Meridian Health. Through its devastating spread, COVID-19 has touched all of us, leaving an impact on every facet of our lives. I'm so proud of the way Hackensack Meridian Health has mobilized to fight this outbreak. Our team members on the front lines fight tenaciously every day for the health of our patients and community. For us, this fight is personal. We are not only treating your families, but our own families as well. And while many things about COVID-19 remain uncertain, I am certain that together we will win this battle. If you can, please help our patients, our healthcare heroes, and our researchers by making a donation to our COVID-19 response fund. You can learn more at hackensackmeridianhealth.org/COVID-19. Sponsored by the Hackensack University Medical Center Foundation and aired by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
Is a friend or loved one's gambling problem affecting your life emotionally, spiritually, or financially? Do you yourself take a toll on the people around you due to a gambling issue? Have the conversation. Visit 800gambler.org for access to a new video on the family, various programs, services, and resources for disordered gamblers, their friends, and or loved ones. At 800gambler, we offer support, treatment, and hope. We're just a phone call or click away. This message sponsored by the Council on Compulsive Gambling in New Jersey, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Capco
off the weekend of watching sports by talking about it with Mark Roseman and AJ Carter on Sports Talk New York. All the intelligent conversation, insightful interviews, and reporters covering every story is right here on 540 AM from 7 to 8:30 Sunday nights. Check out SportsTalkNYLive.com for previews of upcoming guests and visit their Facebook page for a chance to win prizes. Sports Talk New York, Sunday nights from 7 to 8:30 on 540 AM.
Morris County needs everyone, and especially our Spanish-speaking community, to fill out the 2020 census. It's safe, it's easy, and it's really important. If we are not fully counted, communities in Morris County from all nationalities, races, and ethnic groups will lose federal aid. Less money for housing and child care programs. Less for schools and student lunches. Less for senior citizens. Less for community health care. Competition for federal dollars is fierce. So if you live in Morris County, please fill out your census, online or on paper. No one will ask about citizenship, Social Security, bank accounts, or personal info. Help Morris County count in 2020. Do it now. Visit NJ Census 2020. This message sponsored by the County of Morris, the New Jersey Department of State Complete Count Commission, and ordered in cooperation with the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station. In the wake of the coronavirus, many schools and colleges are utilizing distance learning. While distance learning may be the best way to keep students and school staff safe, students and educators alike will surely miss the personal interactions and social opportunities that take place in regular school settings. Here are some ways to make the most of distance learning. First of all, stay on a schedule. It's easy to put things off when you work from home. Get up, get dressed, and keep regular lunch breaks. Make time for online social interactions. Students can create study groups that can meet online to review lessons and ask questions. Get up and move. Take a break every hour to take a walk around the house. Drink some water and wash your hands. Stay alert and practice healthy habits. Eat dinner as a family. Talk about what you learned each day. Keep a regular sleep schedule. It's easy to get off track and stay up late watching television or playing video games when you don't have to leave the house. Remember, it's still a school day. This message is sponsored by the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Hi, I'm Howie Rose, and you're listening to Mark and AJ on 540 Sports Talk New York.
The third baseman, number 11, Mark Rosenman.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. I think we're going to have to get Callum to do that for you guys, too.
I would love that.
Why not? Although then there'll be no time because the whole second half of the show.
The guests might not love it.
Right, exactly. Joining us now is a man who was originally selected 18th overall in the 2005 NLL entry draft by Calgary. He is a 15-year veteran and has been second and first leading scorer in the NLL over the last 2 seasons as a member of the New England Black Wolves. This past month, he agreed to bring his offensive talents to Long Island as he signed with the New York Riptide. He is a lacrosse legend as he is on the verge of being one of the top 10 players for career games played, goals scored, assists, and total points of all time. His career total of 1,049 points makes him one of only 11 players in league history to be part of the 1,000-point club. It is a pleasure to welcome the newest member of the Riptide, Callum Crawford, to 540 Sports Talk New York. How you doing, Callum?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys. Telling my draft date is just making me feel ancient here.
It's interesting because you actually started playing lacrosse in Gloucester at the age of 10, worked your way through the age group system, and played 4 seasons in the Ontario Lacrosse Association Junior B League with the Gloucester Griffins and the Knights. Can you tell us a little bit about youth lacrosse system in Canada? And is 10 years old kind of on the older range to start?
Yeah, to do what I've done, I think as a career, it was an older age to start. But I hung my hat kind of getting into the league and majority of my career, an athlete who played lacrosse instead of a lacrosse player. And that's kind of what us older, anyways, Canadian lacrosse players are, because our stick skills, when we start so young, for the most part, we're not necessarily the greatest athletes, but our skill ability is really good. The way that youth lacrosse works in Canada is it's all done by birth year, so it's not done by grad year, which is a huge difference between the United States and Canada, how they kind of do things in our box lacrosse stuff. So you always play in a 2 birth year age gap coming up through the ranks. So your first year, you're considered a minor, if it's phantom or midget or whatever your age is, and you start as a minor, and then you play as a senior of that age group, and then you move up. That's kind of how we do everything. And some kids, like my kid, my son started when he was 3 years old when he was in Canada.
Wow. Yeah, so the 7 years jump on you for sure. So maybe the turning point in your career came in the final half of your 2005 season with the Six Nations Arrows Junior A team. The Arrows not only won the OLA Junior A title, but also reached the Minto Cup National Championship final, where you scored 6 goals and 14 points in those 6 games. What did those 6 games mean to you? And, in means of what you thought you might be able to accomplish in the game of lacrosse?
Oh, you guys have done research here. I'm impressed. You guys have to go through scripture to find this information. I didn't even know.
Oh wait, I got one that's going to total blow you away, but we'll get there.
Yeah, no. To be honest, for me, I did not play high level lacrosse growing up. It was C level. Most people who go on to play this level of lacrosse and NCAA lacrosse, they're all playing A level in their youth ages, and then when they play junior, they're playing junior A. I played junior B because where I was from, Ottawa, it was not a lacrosse hotbed. It was, dads who never played the game teaching it. There was no real coaching. There were great people volunteering, and my hat's off to them for doing the best that they could, but there was no real lacrosse teaching. So when I went to Six Nations, my eyes opened up to what real lacrosse was, how good kids were, and to be honest, how not good I was. So, that experience is the only reason I am where I am today in lacrosse. If I didn't get to go play for Six Nations, I don't think anybody would have had an opportunity to see this 6'3" kid and take a chance on him. So I owe everything to the Six Nation Arrows for taking a chance on me.
It's so interesting because, I guess my point of reference is hockey. So you take a look at the similar situation, the way hockey is structured there, and you take a guy like Eric Lindros, who was a man playing against boys because of his birth year, but his size. So you take a look at you, and you were big for your age in that age bracket. How much did that help you overcome what you say that you lacked in stick skills and such? How much of your athleticism, just because of your build, helped you overcome that lack of stick skill?
I don't know if the stick skills were all right. It was more the IQ. I was good at playing the game, but I had no lacrosse IQ. I did not understand the game at a high level. I could do all types of things with the stick and everything. That part was fine. I didn't have incredible size. I was 6'3", but I was probably a $170 soaking wet when I was drafted. So my game wasn't a big man's game. I was just gifted with really good change of direction and a great first step, and that was kind of what I hung my hat on for so long, and it allowed me to stay existing in the professional league while I took years and years and years to learn the game and absorb as much as I could and actually become a decent lacrosse player.
So you get drafted by the Calgary Roughnecks in the second round of the draft. Were you surprised at how high you went in that draft?
Yeah, to be honest, it wasn't something to boast about because you're not a first-round draft pick and whatnot. And back then, I think for the most part, the people who made it in the league were first-rounders. But for Calgary, it was the first pick they had in that draft, and I knew they were looking to take me. I didn't know 100%. They didn't say, hey, 100% we're taking you, but I knew they were interested, which was great. But if you look at the draft class that was in there, I would put that draft class up against any draft class in the history of the NLL. There's some incredible talents that were in that class, and you can't question how you go in 18th when you think of the guys over there.
So your rookie season, Chris Hall, who a few years ago was inducted into the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame as your coach, the captain of the team was Tracy Kaluski. How important were those two men in setting the foundation for your professional lacrosse career and learning the game?
Yeah, the late Chris Hall, I actually did an interview not too long ago. Somebody asked me if I could pick one person to sit in the stands and watch me play right now. That was the person that came to my mind because he's the one who took a chance on me. He was the first person to draft me. He was such an incredible coach, intimidating human being. I think he was like 6'5", a good like 260 jacked. He was this specimen of a man, and when he would get angry, his face would turn red like a tomato. And then being a 21-year-old kid, way out of his league, it was intimidating, but he was a great person to learn from because he hung on to every word. And then Tracy Kaluski is, in my opinion, the greatest captain I've ever had an opportunity to be around. He is the only reason I was able to learn and become something because I think he recognized quickly in training camp how little I knew, but he saw something in me that I didn't even know in myself. I remember post-game at a bar one night with other guys, he put his arm around me and told me that I was going to be the leading scorer of this league one day.
Wow.
Hit me afterwards, said, well, behind him, but I would be the leading scorer one day. And that actually resonated with me for years and years and years because I looked up to him at the time. He was one of the best players in the league, and you admire a person like that and you hang on to those things. So for him to take the time he did with me, teaching and talking to me and looking out for me and looking after me and doing the things he did, it allowed me to see how valuable that is to be that role model and take that extra time for younger guys in this league, and especially guys who you can tell may not be overly confident about themselves and stuff. So those two men are, I owe so incredibly much to the two of them, and I do my very best to try to acknowledge and credit them. So, if they ever do get a chance to listen to something, they understand how grateful I am.
You look at your career numbers, it seems things really started to take off in your fifth season as a member of the Minnesota Swarm. Was that just more of you having learned the intricacies of the game, or is it something in Mike Lyons or Joe Sullivan's system that brought out the best in your game?
I think the big thing was I had the first 4 years bouncing around and learning from so many great people, and I had to play a IQ position. I didn't get to do what was my norm. My whole life growing up was just give me the ball and get out of my way, and I would go one-on-one. And that's how everything happened forever. And then I got to this level where it's like, hey, everybody around you is way better than you are. You have to learn to play without the ball, which is an IQ position. So I had to spend 4 years understanding the game, learning the game, and having to become a much smarter, better lacrosse player. When I got to Minnesota, they had a need for a ball carrier. Now, I don't think they, myself, or anybody expected me to kind of take off like I did, but they were looking for an athletic right-handed distributor ball carrier, and it allowed me to be, for the first time in my career, on a team that needed a player whose strengths were what my strengths were, and it let me be me for the first time. There obviously tons of growing still needed to be done, but it allowed me to play within my skill sets primarily instead of the things I didn't necessarily do very well. And that's probably what I credit that next step in my career of being successful was just getting to the right team at the right time.
And was that the first time you felt like you've said as a lacrosse player and not just an athlete?
It was the first time I felt like I belonged. So that off season, I almost quit playing professionally to go overseas and coach in Germany. I was like, I'm good enough to be here, but am I good enough to stay here? It was one of those things where I didn't know what I wanted to do. This wasn't something where I've never been somebody who's okay at not being the best. I have this competitive problem, and for me it was juggling on how much longer do I want to do this. I had some great opportunities to see the world through this game and stuff like that, and I kind of gave myself a little talk. I said, hey, we'll do one off season where we give this our everything, eat properly, train with top end trainers athletically, and give it your everything and see what happens after a year, and then make a decision. So I put my everything into it, and that was the eye opener of, hey, you can do this, and you can do this at a high level.
Your 2016 season with the Colorado Mammoth establishes you as a star in the league. You eclipsed the 100-point mark for the first time in your career. Looking back at that season, and from where you were in that rookie season, you stated you didn't have that high lacrosse IQ. Looking back from that point at a 100-point season, what was that sense of accomplishment for you, knowing how much you've come from that rookie season to that year?
I actually went back not too long ago and watched some film from when I first came in the league and then when I was in Minnesota compared to then, and completely just different. I play the game completely differently. It's not and I move differently and everything that I do. So it was interesting to see the difference. But the points, getting over 100 points just comes with playing with incredible players at the same time. Probably I wouldn't say the first, because in my primary role in Minnesota and in Colorado was always to be like a point guard, a distributor, and everything. I've always been a pass-first player. There, I just happened to be passing to a couple of the best goal scorers in the world, and when the team is scoring a lot of points, there's only 5 guys on the floor, and 3 people, for the most part, are getting a point associated to each goal. So, I feel like I was playing at that level or relatively close, my whole time, for the most part, in Minnesota. Just Minnesota was a young team, rebuilding every single year and trading away veteran talent and trying to find that right fit. That it was a rebuild, every single year that I was there. So versus getting to Colorado, where it was an established team competing for a championship. So I think maybe I got an extra 10, 15 points from what I did in Minnesota in a season. But a lot of that's credited to the people you play with.
Okay, so I hope my research is correct here, okay? You're a movie buff, and I've heard you say in the past that your style of lacrosse came straight out of White Man Can't Jump, but also one of the movies and characters that you relate to on a personal level is Max Goof from the 1995 Disney animated film, A Goofy Movie. Now, I'm thinking in my mind, based on your story, it's more Rudy, Rocky, Tom Cruise, and all the right moves. So I got to ask you, out of every possible movie, if you're a movie buff, why do you relate to Max Goof?
So Max Goof was just in this interview, and I was trying to kind of explain what this fascination with movies were for me. And the fascination for it is the ability to live vicariously through people. When I was younger, I would rewatch the same movie over and over and over if it happened to have this character that kind of just struck me, and I just wish I could do that. And that was a Goofy movie for me. And it was, I wasn't some picked on kid that wasn't liked or anything, but I was always just generic in the sense of there, nothing special, but I always had this desire, I think, to stand out. And in that movie, it just, that's exactly what he was. He was there, he's got good friends and everything. He's acknowledged by everybody, but he's not popular and whatnot. He kind of has that aspiration, and he does this dancing thing, and everybody blows up, and they love him. And I'd say for me, that was lacrosse. Lacrosse allowed people to kind of take a second look and get to know, but for me also be more confident in myself and all those things. So I think that's why it kind of relates. I don't think I'm actually Max, but I think that's why that movie, it can really, if you look at it in that sense, it's a good description of kind of that lack of confidence and what something, one single thing can do for you acknowledging and understanding you belong and being accepted and all those things.
I hope you have like a movie poster of that somewhere in your house for sure. If not, we're going to have to do that. I'm going to have to speak to someone at the Riptide to make sure you get yourself a Goofy movie poster. So you signed with the Riptide, where you would join forces with the #1 pick in the 2019 NL Draft, Tyson Gibson, Dan Lomas, Connor Kelly, and a few of the other young talented forwards. What do you think you would bring to a team that's very young, and how will you help this very young team?
I'm hoping I can, my skill set is going to be something that works well with the guys that are there, having, that point guard type player and having somebody that strives to make everybody else around them better. That's always been my determination of greatness. And, that's why I think Michael Jordan's the greatest, is he made every single player on the Bulls that he played with basically all-stars and everything. So that's kind of how I try to play the game, is the way I'm playing, influencing the guys around me to elevate themselves. And I think there's some good pieces that with a player that plays my style, ball distributor, and generates so much attention, it can allow them to be them and be successful at playing their roles, which are successful, versus last year I feel like some of the guys maybe had to play out of their skill sets and not do necessarily the things that they're really exceptionally good at. And I think allowing me to be there to take some of that burden off of them will let them be them, and hopefully let the offense be a little more complete.
So Mark mentioned some of these players that you're going to come join here, the younger players, but even throughout your career in the NLL, how does scouting and just on a level for you and game to game and knowing the league, how does that work in a league that doesn't maybe get the same attention, or how are you guys watching film and things of that nature?
It's a lot of self-accountability. You have to put work in yourself. We don't have the luxury of being paid full-time salaries for most people, and all living in the same city and having training every single day, and so everything it's yourself. And that's one of my biggest influence. I try to mentor a lot of young players, and that's the main thing, is it's as simple as truly just doing the work. Everybody says they want to be great, or they want to be pros, and they want to do this, they want to do that, but it's the people who actually do everything you need to do to be successful. It's very few, especially in our league. A lot of people, at best, they go to like a Lifetime Fitness, and that's their training regime, is buys and tries, and they call themselves a professional athletes, and that's not meant to slight anybody, but that's just the nature of it, because everybody's got to work a full-time 9-to-5 job, and finding time to get training sessions in and film isn't easy. But the people who do it, you can really recognize their preparation every season when they come into training camp. The guys who are using training camp to get in shape versus the guys who are there and ready to go on day one. And just the work you put in and the scouting you do on yourself. And to be honest, I watched 3 games myself today already on a Sunday. You have to obsess over this. I think if you're going to do anything at this level, you need to be obsessive, and it needs to be on your mind at all times, and then you'll actually get out of it what you're desiring. But everybody has to do it. Everybody needs to do it, and you can tell the guys that do it don't.
On top of everything you've achieved in the sport, you're also the co-founder and president of Impulse Lacrosse, where you develop and educate high school and youth lacrosse players. You've helped well over 50 student athletes achieve college and university lacrosse careers through your guidance in the recruiting process and on-field coaching. Which is more gratifying for you, scoring a goal or getting a student that particular perfect match for them of their dreams, really?
Two different things. In the moment, the scoring goal thing, just because I have this absolute lunatic competitive nature. But I tell everyone, I'm a firm believer, when you retire from being a professional athlete, unless you are one of those rare gems, a LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, you're irrelevant the second you stop playing. Nobody cares about you anymore. The game will continue to move on, regardless whether you're in it or not. And next man's up. So for me, the way I wanted to leave my mark on this game and really have something that's sustainable and that I can look back at and stay relevant is hopefully helping these young men with a potential future at something they may not have had a chance to do without us setting up this program and doing it. So that long-term gratification of leaving your mark on the game is truly through the other generations, and I think that's more important long-term. But while I'm still playing, I'll take scoring as many goals as I possibly can.
Callum, thanks so much for your time tonight. Thank you for giving me a new appreciation for the Goofy movie as well. We look forward to seeing you this coming season. Hopefully, by the time the season starts, we'll be able to sit in the stands, and the 3 of us are definitely going to come out there and take in a riptide game. So we really appreciate you coming on, and good luck in this upcoming season.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I hope you can do it again soon.
Absolutely. All right. Lacrosse legend right there. I mean, actually, this guy is going to move into the top 10 all time in mostly every single statistic there is. Quick break on the other side. We'll wrap it up with the football report, so keep it right here.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. It's time for the Just Escape NFL Report with Jay Rasher. Just Escape is back, looking for some fun to do with your friends and family after being stuck in the house for, it seems, forever. Test your problem-solving skills at Just Escape in Massapequa. Have an experience like no other. 5 fun and challenging rooms, all varying in difficulty and scare factor. Just Escape is the perfect, unique day out for all ages. Great for corporate and fundraising events and birthday parties, too. Don't forget to use the promo code FINALLY for 20% off your next booking. Visit justscapeli.com to see all the new safety protocols they put in place. And to book your room today, that's justscapeli.com. And before we talk football, we just have to congratulate Jay as he is a new uncle. So congratulations, Jay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's my sister's business, Just Escape too, so she hasn't even been there in a couple weeks. But yeah, thank you very much. Baby Savannah's here, and she can't wait to get to an escape room herself.
Awesome. A guy who has just escaped the pup list is Alex Smith, who's the next step in his comeback. I don't know. What can we expect from Alex Smith? Horrible injury. I know that Theismann says that it was worse than his. What can we expect from Alex Smith?
Listen, I may be in the minority here, guys, but I actually do think that there's a chance that he's the starting quarterback for Washington this upcoming season. If we have a season, you don't get physically cleared, and if we can't play. This isn't one of those things they're just going to do if just because he's a good guy and because he's worked really hard. And this is a guy that he's done everything possible to be able to be cleared for football activities. And another guys, this is a new regime here at Ron Rivera and his guys. And this isn't the staff that drafted Dwayne Haskins. And you guys watched a little Dwayne Haskins last year too. And I don't know, man. I wasn't completely sold on him. I don't like his footwork. I think he obviously has more upside being younger. But if you're a team like Washington, maybe Alex Smith's the answer until maybe Ron Rivera gets his chance to draft somebody in the draft next year.
Giants made a signing. They've had problems with their kicking game, not only on the field, off the field for a number of years. They got Graham Gano, a guy who recorded a 63-yard field goal. He was a Pro Bowler in 2017, first team All-ACC in college. Does he bring finally some stability to a position that the Giants have had not the best track record of late?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing with Gano. It's not because he's not a good enough kicker. It's just because he's been injured the last year and a half. I saw him all the way back to his days at Florida State. This guy's got a really good leg. He's a big-time kicker, former Pro Bowler. And listen, the other guy that the Giants brought in, I saw him firsthand, Chandler Catanzaro. I know Jets fans have seen him. I saw him in the Tampa Bay Buccaneer locker room as well. That's not the answer if you're trying to find the answer for the kicking game. If Graham Gano can stay healthy, this is his job to lose.
All right, the Jets finally, they got themselves what we felt was going to be a franchise quarterback. What good is a franchise quarterback if maybe the best receiver in all of New York is an AM radio disc jockey named Keyshawn Johnson?
That's a great point, man. I know they pick up Chris Hogan, so yeah, he's run the AFC East gamut playing with every team. But, Denzel Mims missed some time. They got Rashad Perriman that I saw firsthand in Tampa Bay. And Perriman was not good early on with Tampa Bay. Most memorable thing in his first 9 weeks with them was actually running into the running back on a goal line play. So, man, with the truncated kind of training camp issues, I think it's going to be rough for Sam Darnold again, and expect to see a whole heck of a lot of Le'Veon Bell this upcoming season.
Unbelievable. Now, you did mention in the open, we got 1 minute, if there is a football season. What do you think? We're going to make it through?
I think so, man. I think you're looking at what these other teams have done and other leagues have done. I'll be at Buccaneers camp twice this week to see Tom Brady and the fellas. But, yeah, I think they're looking at what baseball's doing, and I think it's a little bit of a scare tactic game, too, guys. You look at what some of these players have done. Zach Plesac, in Clevenger. My gosh, I mean, what are these guys doing? I think NFL players are looking at that. You don't want to be that guy where everybody associates your name with this, kind of like a Rudy Gobert. If the NFL can do that, I think they'll be in good shape.
All right. We appreciate it, Uncle Jay. We'll speak to you next week. Jay Retro here each and every week with the NFL JustEscapeLI.com report. We'll see everyone next week. Just a programming note, unfortunately, there was a scheduling mishap with our first guest, Keith Kinkaid. Hopefully he'll be with us next week. So see you next week, everybody.